In this lesson, we're going to be building common patches that you guys could use in your everyday production. To start, we're going to be building an analog synth bass patch. So this is very classic. It's been around since the time of the Model D. People have been using it in a lot of records, but it always works. So to start this patch, I'm going to initialize the synth. So we're at the bass patch. That's it. We just got a sawtooth wave. One oscillator, the filter's completely open. That's it. So for this patch, I'm going to first start by adding a second oscillator with a sawtooth wave and detuning it just slightly. Now detuning synths, oscillators, just slightly, can give harmonically rich sounds off the bat. Because of the detuned nature, you start to have beat frequencies and movement without even adding modulation. So here. Already sounds better. All right, from here, I'm going to move on to the filter. Now for this one, we're going to use the sequential filter, which is a 4-pole OTA filter, a low pass. And we're going to start with the cutoff knob. Start with it fully open and bring it down to a place where, I feel comfortable with it. Sounds good to me. From here, I like to really shape the filter. It's important to shape the filter because this is really what will give the tonality of the sound, especially for bass patches. So for instance, just opening up this filter amount, well, let's initialize these really quick. You can open and close the filter with the amount. Now what gets interesting is if you use the attack, sustain, and decay in conjunction with this amount, you can really dial in different types of bass sounds. What I just did there was I went back to the filter and I turned up the drive a little bit. This brings up the low end on the filter because when you filter out frequencies, sometimes you lose a little bit of the low end. Bass patch. Now from here, we can add a little bit of effects, maybe some chorus, something I like to do in the 80s a lot. Now you can add things on top of that like glide, which actually has portamento between the notes and things of that nature to really, get into this. So once you have a general sound like I do here, you can really start to fine tune these knobs and find a sound that really hits you and says, that's the one I want. So for instance, there's a little bit too much click on that. So I can use the amplitude envelope with the attack to take off some of that front end. I can take off a lot, but just dialing it in just right. That's it, perfect. All right, so the next type of patch we're gonna build is a lead patch. This patch is used to really cut through the top end and is used to play the melody of songs rather than a harmony or a bass line. This is really supposed to be the lead, kind of replacing a flute or a clarinet or a saxophone, but with a synthesizer. Let's get into it. First things first, I'm going to initialize the synthesizer, so we're at the bass sound again. For a patch like this, I really like to use a softer type of oscillation rather than a sawtooth wave because it's a little bit too harsh. So let's go over to a triangle wave. Much softer sound off the bat. Let's bring in another triangle. And let's offset the fine tunes on these just a little bit. And when I say just a little bit, I mean a few notches. Sounds great already. All right, from there, let's move over to our filter. Now, for a lead patch, don't really want to remove too much of the top end. So how are we going to do that? Well, we can have it fall to that level, but initially with the filter envelope, we can have it hit its high point and then come back down. Already a little better. So once you set your filter to a desired level, then you really want to get into the filter envelope to shape this in a way where it really just sounds beautiful. You know, it opens up at the beginning of the sound, but then falls back. Something that's a little bit more lively, you know, and not just so stagnant. Dynamics and synthesizers sound very good. The filter envelope is at its base setting. We have the sustain all the way high. We have the attack at 0, the decay at 0, the release at 0, and the amount at 0. As we turn up the amount, it starts to open up the filter. Now this is really useful because we can use the amount, the sustain, attack, and decay in conjunction with each other to really get interesting movement out of the filter itself. So for instance, if we give a medium long attack, kind of medium short, a little bit of delay, and then bring the sustain down, and a little release after the note gets released. You can really have a movable sound that isn't so stagnant. Now we can bring in resonance. And you can even hear those beat frequencies happening. I didn't use any of the LFOs yet. That's just because of the detuned nature of the oscillators. Detuning oscillators really gives a nice vintage sound. Remember that. Now the last kind of patch we're going to talk about building is a pad. Now this is very common on synthesizers and has been used multiple times throughout history in many big hits. Let me show you guys how to build one. First things first, we're going to initialize the synthesizer. Like I said, that means to bring it back to its initial state. Very basic sound, right? For this, we need multiple notes because pads are actually chordal type of sounds. So we're going to put it in paraphonic mode. So now all the oscillators can be played freely on different notes. Just like some keys. Now, a pad, we really like to use the amplitude modulation or the amplitude envelope to create the pad type of texture. So on a pad, we have a very long attack and a long decay that ends up at some sustain level that's usually lower. And we kind of model this both on the filter and the amplitude. Let's do that right now. Now, although this type of synthesizer is not really made for making pads, it's really more lending towards basses and leads, you can still do it. Thanks for joining me. My name is Eric Diamond. All the stuff that we learned here can be applied to other hardware synths or even software synths that have the same kind of topology, anything that is subtractive synthesis based. If you'd like to learn more about subtractive synthesis, please head over to soundcollective.com where I have an advanced course on subtractive synthesis for sound designers. Thanks.